Good evening to you, Senior Counsel.
Good night,
Good night.
Mr. Mayor. Good night, Mr. Christian. Good night, Mr. Caruso.
Good night.
Good night to the listeners. What's up?
We okay, man?
Well, I listened to the show, and I wanted to go on record and say that Clarence is right. That the public release that was put out was that the proposed legislation was delivered to the Electoral Commission and to the Chief Elections Officer. And the suggestion that these guys were trying to make meatballs from dashing and fig to suggest that it was not given to them personally is another part of the intellectual dishonesty that we've had to confront since the birth of the United Workers' Party. There is a pathological tendency, drive, obsession in lying and misinforming and being deceitful. And it's really shocking. And there is, in my view, a more dangerous situation in that you get the impression that those that oppose the government for the sake of opposing, or who support the United Workers' Party blindly, are consumed with some level of evil, and I can't find the right word for it. I tried to do a search to find a word more potent and stronger and more emphatic than evil, and I haven't been able to find it. Because in the last couple of years, couple of weeks, first of all, let me just offer my condolences to the family of Mr. Philip Nassif, a man that I've had the greatest respect for, one of the most decent human beings I've ever met, and my dear friend Sogo, who I've known since I was probably in short pants. And I remember the many days meeting him sitting down in Astaphan's. And I said, "Why you in charge of security or what?" He says, "No, but so long as I'm here, nobody can trouble my wadi," and so on. Sogo was a special man, and I will miss him dearly. But these fellows seem to think that his passing is a joke. I have seen screenshots sent to me with photographs of the late Frankie Barrett, my dear friend, my deepest condolences to his family as well. Wants to be, and to his family too, and of Sogo Fly. And you get the sense that there is delight in the fact that key Dominicans, born and bred supporters, who have spent either only the career firm or have used the career firm for the purposes of defending and promoting the party and the government. There's a sense of celebration in that, and it's nothing new. I remember when Rosie Douglas died. I don't know if some of you remember. I remember when Rosie Douglas died, there was celebration, there were expressions of joy. I remember too when Pierre Charles died and I was summoned to the hospital. And when I got there, from the car park walking into the hospital, somebody shouted, "Yeah, Astaphan, the SOB dead, you can't help him anymore." And I remember when Honorable Charles Savre was ill in the studio with me, and I forgot the DJ's name at the time. They laughed and they celebrated. You know, I just find people who celebrate the death of persons who are politically different to them a shocking expression of the most crude, evil, hatred, emotion, and I don't know what other words I can find to describe it. I've never gotten over that person shouting at me about Pierre Charles, or what they said about Rosie Douglas, what they said about the supporter of the Labour Party who was Central, whose child died in an accident. I mean, it's a very sad and unfortunate part of the political life of this country, a cultural, the politics that we once knew and understood has gone. Mm-hmm. The hate is profound, the evil is open, the I couldn't care less. I mean, it's a deep-rooted hatred take an example of the situation with Zed. I hold no brief from Zed. I think Zed sometimes makes a complete fool of himself. But he expressed his opinion on what he thinks was happening with the political party. And you heard the response of Clinton, his anger, his tone, his pejorative language that he used, and the contemptuous manner in which he spoke of somebody perhaps who is deserving of contempt, but not from him, Clinton, Thompson Fontaine. I mean, I was sent that clip a couple of times, and I listened to it many times, and the hatred was unbearable. And you heard other attacks on Q95 and on Facebook by Brian Linton and others on persons who may have decided that to put their support with the elected political leader of the party. I mean, it's nuts. And the extraordinary thing about all of this to me is that the personal attacks, the pejorative attacks, and the creation of new parties like the UPP have nothing to do with policy or people. It's a scenario created by a sinking and foul-smelling ship and failed captains, or it's a desire to secure what they all believe is the fundraising abilities of the political leader of the United Workers' Party, and power and greed, or perhaps even simpler than that, loss of power syndrome. I mean, it's just, I mean, they're eating up each other, they're falling apart, they're creating new political parties. You have an independent member of parliament from Marigot who decides to leapfrog the United Workers' Party. Perhaps the leadership is no longer his neighbor. To join the UPP with the former deputy leader, who is an absolutely failed politician and political leader. I mean, I like to see it happening. It appears to be good for the Dominican Labour Party, but it's more important than that. It tells you about the leadership of the political party. It tells you when they speak in the language that they have, that they're not really interested in service to the people. And compare that to how the Dominican Labour Party and all of us on the radio function. How many times have you all, the various hosts, cut people off who was trying to defame or insult or abuse somebody? Almost all the time that it happens, you cut it off. We have never spoken in any disrespectful language to anybody or threatened anybody, but they do it to each other all the time. And despite the differences within the Labour Party and outside, we've never taken our laundry, if it was at all dirty, in the public eye. Matters are resolved in a manner and in accordance with decency and democracy within the context of a civilized political party with good leadership. I mean, I just find it, and just contrast with the attempts by a former minister who seems to be suffering from something, I don't know what it is constant barrages and attacks on the government and the Prime Minister, with zero response from the political leader or from any one of us who are authorized to speak in any derogatory terms or in any derogatory way. I mean, I don't think Lennox Linton had the right to respond to that the way that he did. But if we had used the same sort of tone and language in relation to the former minister, I think the Prime Minister would be extremely disappointed and upset with us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Leadership matters. And your party and the behavior of your members of parliament, the members of the party, the supporters of the party, reflects the conduct of the leadership. It reflects the conduct of the leadership, and leadership matters. Leadership matters. All of us know, all of you all in the studio and I know, that if we stray, and if we say anything untoward, Senior Minister, Prime Minister, or Minister Lovell would have something to say. perhaps I would have something to say to. So we're not in the sewage collection business. We're not in the garbage collection business. We are part of the democratic process and we respect the rules of the game. Nor do I hold any grief for Thompson Fontaine. I think Thompson Fontaine is perhaps a worse political leader than Lennox Linton. For a simple reason. Linton is completely uneducated. Thompson isn't. Thompson has worked with the IMF and has some understanding about things, even though his contract was not renewed. But let's not forget that Thompson Fontaine was part and parcel of the lying machine of the United Workers' Party. Part of the fabrication of allegations and so on. I wrote about it. I've shared one of the articles with you all. The whole uproar about Dawood Singh came from him or his friend Jeremy Sinclair with his consent, and it got so out of hand that Lennox Linton emailed Jeremy Sinclair to tell Jeremy Sinclair that this lies about Dawood has to stop because Tony, meaning me, was destroying them on the radio. I'm not sure who he emailed. I don't have the email before me, or either Jeremy Sinclair or Thompson Fontaine. But Thompson Fontaine responded, I agree with you, Lennox. We have to stop it. Then we cannot forget the incidents with the DAS money and the DAS land. There's some people who are seeking to do a Michelangelo painting of a different Thompson Fontaine to us. But those of us who know him, or knows what he did or what he was accused of having done, will never forget. There's also another statement that he made that tells me the caliber of mindset that Thompson Fontaine has. You remember when they said they went on a tour of the country? Thompson Fontaine comes back, former IMF officer, to say that the young people were asking for guns to kill Haitians and Chinese. And one of the questions we asked on the radio is, well, did you refer the matter to the police? Did you condemn these requests for guns from you? Why would somebody ask you, of all people, for guns to kill other people? And I think that was just an enormous exaggeration, or how should it, a lie of maximum expansion. It's unbelievable, the leadership of the United Workers' Party before and the current one. There's a very clever repainting of Thompson Fontaine to make him presentable to the people of this country, but it will not work. Because you cannot be part and parcel of an institution as a candidate, as a person who spoke on its behalf and written articles on its behalf and who spoke on its behalf, to suddenly change and says you're not part of the history of the United Workers' Party. You're not going to get away with that, especially when you know what you did and what you said. Remember the part about Dominica was embarrassed internationally by the royal family because Dominica was not part of the royal tour that took place some many years ago. And the sole response was that Dominica is a republic, and the queen, the then queen or the now king, can only come to our country on the invitation of the president, who will act on the advice of the prime minister and the cabinet. We can never be part of any royal tour. But that was one of the lies that Thompson Fontaine spoke of in the past. And there are others, and there are others, and there are others. I mean, the history of lying with the United Workers' Party, the Gonzalez bugging allegation and commission of inquiry, the resort to violence, the stones at the Dame Virginia Chance when she was Prime Minister, the violence at Pigwa Bridge in 2005, when they literally prevented a motorcade of the Dominica Labour Party, whose leader was then Prime Minister, from crossing the bridge. Then we have the extraordinary hypocrisy of 2005, with the securing of $3 million in exchange for diplomatic postings for campaign funding, $1.5 million in 2009 US, and then the 2019 Al Jazeera disaster for the United Workers' Party, the two 400,000 memoranda that were signed. I mean, you have a dysfunctional political party that has made its name from lies, threats, misinformation, destructive tenure in public office when the country got sanctioned, had visas imposed on us, were prepared to sell diplomatic or give citizenship or diplomatic passports to people wanted by Interpol like Christopher's case, or give citizenship to the Saudi terrorist who was wanted by the Saudi Arabian government. I mean, the rot that the United Workers' Party has placed in our land is unbearable. But before I end, I want to read a Facebook post by Chen Lavlet, most of which, if not all of it, I agree with. And it reads as follows: Lennox Linton's recent press release responding to Zed Lloyd's criticism again highlighted a troubling aspect of the United Workers' Party leadership. Bearing in mind Linton then was and still is the president. Zed Lloyd, who is a long-time supporter and appears to still support UWP, has made no secret of his issues with the leadership of the party. So in Lennox Linton's response, he referred to the man as brutish, questioned his intellectual capacity and his loyalty to the party. In a near similar circumstance, there is a former member of the Dominican Labour Party who openly criticized the DLP-led government through a barrage of Facebook posts, and I put in bracket after his tenure as ambassador in Cuba had ended. Close brackets. In response, the culture of a statesman that Prime Minister embraces prevailed. And to this date, our leadership has never attacked the gentleman publicly. It is concerning that the victimization they accuse the Labour Party of, they do it very well, even as an unrepresented opposition entity. They humiliate you if you are not aligned to the views of the leadership. In this case, it's perhaps a bit worse than just the views of the leadership, because you have part of the leadership, which is the president, Lennox Linton, demeaning and disrespecting the election in accordance with the rules of the United Workers' Party. You have somebody who's not from Marigot, disrespecting them because he's not from Marigot. Like the United Workers' Party believe in their minds belongs to the Marigot United Workers' Party mafia. It is concerning that the victimization they accuse the Labour Party of, they do it very well, even as an unrepresented opposition entity. They humiliate you if you are not aligned to the views of the leadership. They will humiliate you if you are not going to vote Lennox Linton back as the leader of the United Workers' Party. That's probably the better way to put it. This again displays the stark difference between the United Workers' Party and DLP leadership. The United Workers' Party leadership perpetuates a culture of hate, and I will say evil and dishonesty. This perpetuation of hate that has been embedded for so long is the sole reason for the unpopularity of Thompson Fontaine amongst many UWP supporters. Let's stop there. He may well be right, but Thompson Fontaine's unpopularity stretches beyond the confines and the arenas and the boundaries of the United Workers' Party. Because the vast majority of these people will not forget what he did and what he said and who he is. And then Chen goes on to say, how can Thompson Fontaine inspire people who are only inspired by utterances of hate, destruction, and conflict when it is simply not his personality? I see a mismatch. I will just add with Chen's implied permission. Thompson Fontaine may not be able to inspire people who are only inspired by utterances of hate, destruction, and conflict. And I would add, Thompson Fontaine cannot inspire people who are truly interested in the truth, who are interested in the truth and what the facts are. Because for him to be part and parcel of the chorus, that nothing's happening and this is that, and Dominica faces an explosion or decline and so on, it's manifestly misleading, because Dominica, from whence we came, the country that was one of the poorest in the OECS, from whence we came and where we are now, with what has happened, notwithstanding Erica, Maria, and COVID, is nothing short of miraculous. And that's the part of the problem we have in the Dominican opposition political parties. As with most of the other political parties in the opposition, they cannot accept the facts. They cannot discuss or present a credible alternative plan because they have no competence or ideas. So they have to resort to misinformation, to deception, to anger, even at times to violence, with the violence in Marigot, in Salisbury, and in Roseau. Let's not forget these three historical moments of violence. Right? And Clarence is right, that there's an obligation on all of us, especially those of us who come on the radio, to constantly remind the people of the truth and tell them what the facts are. And we must do it in a clear, strategic way so that when they hear us, and if they hear us twice on the same issue or 3 times, it will sink in. It will absolutely sink in. But I just want to end by saying, how can any Dominican, in a Christian society, we say we are a Christian society, born-again Christians, Seventh-day Adventists, Catholics, Anglicans, Methodists, Muslims, but Muslims are not Christian, but religious society. And we have elements of the United Workers' Party, including its leadership and mouthpieces, relishing the fact that Dominicans who are supporting the Labour Party died. And to make it worse, especially if you die in the hospital, like nobody dies in a hospital anywhere in the world. And the things they said about Rosie Douglas and Pierre Charles and Honorable His Excellency Charles Savler must never be forgotten. Do you think if somebody from the United Workers' Party is sick or die, the Dominican Labour Party will celebrate? No, you know what they did? When Dr. Christian was hurt, and he reached out for help from the same Gabriel Christian who's been trying to tear up the Prime Minister's name. Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarry did not say, as they would have said, go to hell. He says, come to me. And he helped them with significant funds. They didn't let him die. Nor would anybody let Chogo or Frankie, but Frankie died overseas, or Monster die. Why would that happen?
Yeah, because
why would any? Sorry,
Tony, it's a good point you're raising that. Let me just sorry for disturbing. It's a good thing you're disturbing. Raising this because what they are pushing on the other side is that the government allowed Sogo to die in the hospital and did not fly him out. And there is a guy, Thaddeus James, and some other persons. And I'm saying here it is. Some Christian, the government paid 140,000 euros to take care of some in Guadeloupe or Martinique. You mean the Prime Minister would allow Sogo Fly to be on a bed, and if the request come to fly him out, he wouldn't be flown out?
But Clarence, don't you accept and don't you agree that for a decision to fly out to be made, it cannot be made by Prime Minister?
It can't be made by Prime Minister.
It has to be made on the recommendation of the doctors.
Of the doctors, of course.
And a patient may come to the hospital in such a state that flying him out may not help him at all because of the medical condition in which he was in. And I mean, it's a good point that you've just raised. It tells you how evil and destructive these people are. They're evil and destructive because Prime Minister Roosevelt Scarry couldn't pick up the phone and call the chief medical officer and say, look, I want you to fly out. Stover fly for me today without any information from the doctors, from the surgeons, from the chief medical officer. They have the road upside down. The road is upside down. The recommendation must come. But in the days when people used to be flown out, is that the right word to use? But in the days of the past, now we have a brand new hospital, 7 theaters there, intensive care unit, highly trained doctors, many of whom, if not most of whom, are local doctors who are trained wherever in the United States, wherever it is, or in Cuba, or wherever it is. and we have the ability to do the MRIs and to do what is necessary. And the doctors will make a determination whether it makes sense or it's worth the time or the funds to fly somebody out. And if it's clear to them that it will be an exercise in hopelessness, then they are entitled to make that decision without political interference or interference from the likes of Viva Mamu and others.
But Senior Counsel, before, if you wanted a CT scan or an MRI, you had to be flown out. So vertical, if you do not know what is happening to the person, you have to do CT scan and MRI, and you have to fly them out. But now you don't have to fly them out for CT scan and MRI to do the necessary diagnosis.
I remember too, they used to fly them out before we had this intensive care unit.
You had intensive care unit
in the Princess Margaret Hospital. Because before that intensive care unit, the requirements to fly out would have been much higher than it is today, with a modern state-of-the-art hospital in Goodwill, and I'm assuming the one in Marigot is functional as well. The point of this discussion, comrades and friends and listeners at home, is that these people are evil. They cannot compete with Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit on leadership, on competence, on experience, on knowledge. Just imagine taking a country in 2003, which the Caribbean Development Bank said had 40% poverty. That's 40%. 10% of which, especially in the Kalinago territory, were indigenous poverty. 53% of homes needed repairs or toilets. A significant portion of the elderly were abandoned by their family because the economy had contracted under the United Workers' Party, and many people were abandoned. The sick, the elderly, the infirm were abandoned and could not be well taken care of. And that's one of the reasons why I have the deepest respect for Roosevelt Skerrit initiating the Yes We Care program as one of the first social and economic programs that he did. And we saw the videos, and we heard the people cry and thanking Roosevelt Skerrit for saving them from the inhumane condition in which they were left by their families or treated by their families, and gave them this sense of humanity and civilized standards of living. I mean, it's shocking. When they were talking about pit latrines, the Member of Parliament then of Wesley was ridiculing the idea that Granny and Papi will now don't have to open their door at night and go in the bush. All right, bourgeois and middle class and everybody can flush the toilet and open their door and go back in their bed. But you're telling me that you didn't think something was wrong with people having to go in the bush? Come on, man. That United Workers' Party is the most evil cabal and collection of human beings that I've ever come across in my life. I don't think there's any political party in opposition in any part of the USA that's as evil, dishonest. Sorry, as they are. Nobody's going to come. And you think they celebrate the deaths of leaders in any part of the OECS or members of parliament, like my brother from Granby who died. Help me out with his name.
Was that Edward Regis?
Edward Regis.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, who celebrates the death of a human being simply because he is your political opponent? So if I'm doing a case against somebody, win, lose or draw, and that person dies, I'm to celebrate because I no longer have to fight them? What sort of animalistic behavior is that? And that has been one of my biggest problems with the United Workers' Party. They are deep-rooted in evil, dishonesty, and violence because they cannot compete with Roosevelt Skerrit. And if you cannot compete with a man with what he has done for the country, for us, for every sector of society, for the young, for the middle-aged, for the old, for the elderly, what he has done for us with schools, health clinics, there are now 12, there are 2 more being built, with hospitals, with homes, with climate resistant homes, with hotels to give us more jobs, the airport, geothermal, the tram, the whale sanctuary, the billion-dollar publications that we are worth of advertising we're getting in the international community. in telling people that Dominica is one of the best places in the world to come to and to spend time with us. And these guys are on Q95, as Rick Wayne says, pissing in the eyes of the people morning, noon, and night. And you know, gentlemen, I hadn't been on the radio for a while. But I wanted tonight to be able to come on and to spend some time with you all and speak my mind about these issues. You know, and all that Sogo and Frankie and Monsterby did was to stand up with the Dominica Labour Party, and in Frankie's case, to give the Dominica Labour Party a voice. That's why you mock his death. Sogo Fly, because he would take the time with Brain in the mornings and later in Monday night to defend the party in which he's believed in from the first day I met him in 1960 something. And Monsterly, because he was part of the articulation of the party's position. You mock them, you mock prime ministers who die, you mock members of parliament who get sick and die, and that's a flagship for good governance and how should I put it, an invitation to vote for people like that. And the constant garbage from Marboyd and from Viva Mamo and so on. The people should be embarrassed, they should be nauseated, they should be vomiting on themselves, reading that crap, that garbage, that BS. And they're just so politically cowards, they don't put their names. I have never written an article and put names like Ray Charles or John Baptist, or I always put my name.
Yeah.
Cowards do not put their names forward. People who lie, repeatedly lie, pathologically lie, don't put their names on their articles when they publish them. You know, so anyway.
Okay,
Senior Douglas, I have a question for you now.
I'm here.
Okay.
I cannot sing Calypso, that's what you're going to ask.
No. I'm not going to put that kind of pressure on you. No, the thing is, I'm not the kind of person that like to reference people I don't know, but the fact that Lennox Linton could respond to somebody, it means that it's somebody that that may have some credibility in the party. I heard Zedin mention that the UWP basically using electoral reform as an excuse. We know that they have been crying for it, they have been fighting for it, they have been, they say that they are willing to die for it. Now that the draft electoral modernization bill...
They do not want it.
But at the same time, they were blocking it.
Yeah.
They blocked it with violence in 2017, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
They blocked it with an attempt for an injunction in 2018. They have never accepted the fact that the government had spent millions of dollars by 2017. Clarence is right there. Clarence can finish the point for me.
Mm-hmm.
That has spent enormous amount of funds to put in place equipment and measures to implement the confirmation process that the Commonwealth experts had recommended, and which was taken to Parliament and triggered violence. They fired a shot, and I saw the video.
Mm-hmm.
Mills jumped about 6 feet in the air when he heard the shot. In 2017 and 2018, when they came back, after Linton says, they took out 2 parts of the last draft, all is well, let's go to Parliament and vote it, let's get electoral reform on the ground. Boom, Loftus Jura comes with an application for an injunction. They get Sir Dennis Byron to come as a man that I have the greatest respect for. I've appeared before him in as High Court judge, Court of Appeal judge, and I don't think I did in the CCJ. I may have, I don't recall. And they slaughtered his reputation. They jumped all over him. They were saying all sorts of negative things against him. Oh, you paid so much money for that, and you this, and you that, and you did, and so on. And then when he made the recommendation, this is a man that was president of the International Criminal Court, Chief Justice of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, and president of the Court of Appeal, and president of the CCJ. Hilary Shilliford came on the radio and says that Sir Dennis betrayed them because he did not give us the reform that we wanted, not what he thought was the right thing to do. And we went through the consultations, and at every consultation, Clarence was there, you were there, I participated in some. It was all politics. It was all politics. There was never a sensible presentation in writing or orally to the consultation or to the observers who were there. The government holds a 3-week consultation with international, regional, Caribbean, OAS, Commonwealth observers. To do what? They were saying to do what? And they would say, well, to trick us. Which party has ever had electoral reform and given the population, including the diaspora and the locals and those on the island, the right, not the privilege, the right to articulate their views about electoral in the presence of observers, with the promise by the State Secretary to the Cabinet, please send us something in writing if you don't get a chance to talk. And they're still complaining. And the report came out of Sir Dennis, and they sought to crucify him. He betrayed us. He didn't give us the electoral reform we wanted. And you know what the electoral reform they wanted? That your auntie, your uncle, your son, your nephew who's overseas, registered nevertheless, but overseas, who may have come back once every year or once every 5 years, should not have the right to vote. Their electoral reform was one of the most schizophrenic positions I've ever seen. You want electoral reform to disenfranchise people, when the Labour Party wanted electoral reform to enhance the right of everybody registered to vote or being given the opportunity to register to vote, the chance to vote.
That's right.
And you ever hear more hypocrisy than that? Their whole electoral position take them off the voters list. Me not care that between Erica and Maria and COVID, our people, our brothers and sisters and cousins in the diaspora sent $500 million to our country to help us out. And Hillary says they will not let them ride, walk or drive on our road, but they sent $500 million. I don't know if it was EC or US, but $500 million in the space of 5 years to help a country that was on its knees with Erica, Maria, and COVID. When people needed stuff during these times, especially after Erica and Maria, our Dominican diaspora delivered unto us what was needed by us. A similar thing which Gabriel Christian and Thompson Fountain and Irvin Andre celebrated in 2005 as the inherent right of diasporans to vote because they helped build the country. But because Roosevelt Skerritt was winning the election, they changed their minds. So it don't matter whether you build the country or not, come off the list. That was the United Workers' Party's platform for electoral reform, my friend.
But even then, Tony, not only that, they wanted to take them off the list without giving them due process, without giving them a hearing, just strike them off the list.
And Clarence, I heard you once on the radio. Are you there?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I heard you once mention that the case in which I lost, you keep reminding the people I lost the case in Nevis. I lost the case in Nevis precisely because the court said you cannot remove people from the voters list, whether overseas or on the island, without due process.
Without due process, yeah.
And they actually used the word due process, not just notice of a hearing, specific date and time. You must be given the fullest particulars, the fullest opportunity to be heard, to be represented by counsel, and sufficient time once a decision is given to appeal it or to apply by judicial review before taking my name off.
Yeah.
But they don't care about that.
They don't care.
These fellows are destructive, evil, wicked, and they'll try every scheme under the sun to try to get re-elected again. Anything else, gentlemen?
Not really, but basically that's what, when they say they want a clean voters list, that's what they're saying, to remove people's name from the voters list. Just take them out.
Concerned about people's name on the voters list. Why in God's name didn't you object?
Right.
2019, between 2014 and 2019, there were 30 lawfully filed objections. 27 in Roseau Central, 1 in Roseau Valley, and 1, I think, in St. Joe Castlewood. Immediately after the president's declaration came out, they rushed with over 1,000 objections. And the judge threw that out. They have never filed any objections. You will recall in the 2009 litigation when they brought Douglas Mendez in from Trinidad. And one of the points was, I could take the point that Clarence Christian should not vote today because I know he was not in Dominica the last 5 years. The judge said, that's rubbish. Once your name is lawfully on the list and is taken out, unless taken out by due process according to the Court of Appeal, once I turn up on polling station and my name is on the list, I have the right to vote.
Yes,
and if
right.
there's a question about my identity, I still have the right to vote, but I have to file a declaration. And the other big issue too is about ID card. ID cards are something that I think can be used as a weapon of disenfranchisement. But let's leave that for a moment. We have never had a history of fraudulent voting. We've never had a history of personation, which is that I come to say my name is Clarence Christian or Yvonne Asif or Peter Charles or Joe Bento, and I've come to vote and I'm caught and I'm prosecuted and I'm fined or jailed by the magistrate or the court. Never. This big debate about national ID card or specific voter ID card was another obstructive and destructive piece of, how should I put it, part of the program, the campaign to delay and to confuse and to throw dust in the air of the electoral reform. Mm-hmm. Just as it was in relation to the people living overseas for 5 years, as it was with the ID cards. What is the big deal about getting a national ID card? In St. Lucia, you can use your passport, your insurance, your social security card, your driver's license, any government-issued document that has your name on it, your date of birth or whatever it was, you have the right to vote. Why should we not have that privilege or that right? Why do we have to have an ID card when we have no
specific for
record
voting
of any form of personation or fraudulent voting?
Thank
you very much, senior man.
I send you all the bill, don't worry.
Okay.
No, I send Scarrow the bill.
Okay, thank you so much, man, for calling.